All good.
Great, thanks. Hello and welcome to the thunderstorm edition of the June 30th meeting of the Litchfield School Board. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, next on our agenda is Community Forum. We have a Google Meet running. The link to that is meet.google.com/HAR-JANA-HNK. Or we can join the Meet by phone at 1-662-565-5146. And the pin to join is 911-992-355#. It looks like we have a community member in attendance tonight. Did you have any community input for us?
I do.
Great.
Just right from here, is good?
Yep, I think so.
Microphone?
There's a big mic set up. Yep.
Yeah, I think you're okay though.
Okay.
We're a little rusty with this.
Yeah, I know, it's been a while.
Sounds so bad.
And I just want to talk about performing arts at CHS. So since Mr. Brown retired in 2017, we haven't had a band director on full-time in the building 5 days a week. Full-time capacity. Not having this position full-time. Now I'm hearing Mrs. Lake is going to be full-time at LMS and Brittany is going to be the band and chorus director. If this move will continue to decline. I'm asking the board to reconsider this move and hire a full-time band director, Brittany, as our full-time chorus director, and come up with a 1, 3, or 5-year plan. What we're going to do with that fund. Having a full-time band and chorus director get that going in different ways. The pandemic is now coming to an end, God willing. We're starting to see a return to a more normal school year. What better way to celebrate it? We have a full-time band director. We decided to get outside the box, make acts, stuff. They have for a marching band, and play football games, basketball games. You can play at home. You could make this a class that carries gym credit. It would help encourage kids to get exposure to the band and have people see the band that don't regularly go and see the band. And I think that would help with a lot of interested. We currently are forming the musical and the plays to Hunter at the Palace Theater. I think if we have that full-time chorus director, they can take this on, keep the kids engaged in the arts. You guys hold the fate of this department in your hands, and you need to ask yourself, are we committed to the performing arts department, or are we just checking the box? Performing arts department is the only place in this school some of our kids feel at home. For some, it's the only reason they get out of bed to go to school. And getting these kids in school is half the battle. We get them in, we can do a lot of things with them. I hope you put a plan in place and share the progress that's being made. I look forward to seeing what direction the school board goes and hope a new plan will be in place for 2021 and beyond. On a side note, there was a lot of dialogue about improving communication during the elections this year. It was very disappointing to find out about these changes from our kids. There was no communication that came from CHS, the school board, or the superintendent. I couldn't find in any of the public school board meetings where this was discussed. And if Mrs. Lake didn't let our kids know, none of us would have had any idea what was happening until we found out on the first day of school. This move was done with no communication or input from the public. Some of these kids have had her as their band director for the past 7 years. And not to let us into the conversation is very frustrating. Because this was public input, I know you don't have to answer questions, but I asked the members of the committee to ask these questions and have some healthy dialogue about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Do you want to say anything in response or?
I can.
Okay.
So Jim, just a couple of things so that you know, we did bring forward a proposal from the music teachers as to how to restructure next year. That came to a board meeting, so it was done in a public session of the board. Michelle can help me find when that occurred, and we can get that reference to you. Once we realized where we were with enrollments and with a retirement at the elementary school, we engaged all of the music teachers and administrators at all levels in a dialogue about the best way to structure the existing staff, and how to properly frame it. I can tell you that the teachers were adamant that building the program at the middle school is what was necessary. They felt that the largest efficiency we had was that students would, if you were a band or chorus student, you were able to access band and chorus all the way through middle school. But if you were a general student, you just had general music in 5th grade, and that's where it ended. And they felt that not having access to general music in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade was a detriment, because a student rising up to the high school would not suddenly decide, hey, I think I'd like to explore some music, when there hadn't been exposure. So next year's schedule actually doubles down on the amount of music exposure at the middle school. So I can tell you there's a general music addition in the 7th grade being proposed, in addition to the band and choruses that are there. So we have engaged our staff in that. And as far as communication, I apologize that I didn't communicate this, but I really did think with our music teachers being involved, and then the principals being involved, I thought there was communication about the changes that were taking place. I did learn from a board member that it was sort of announced at the tail end at the high school, and I wasn't thrilled that that's the way the communication flow had gone. But I can assure you the teachers were involved. In fact, we had a lot of dialogue about the best way to structure this. We had also talked about whether to continue having somebody come up to the high school, or whether somebody should, even from the middle school, push down to elementary. What was the right way to make sure that we were programmatically building this? And the teacher input was, build it at the middle school, and then we'll solve how to take care of the growth at the high school. But you have to begin somewhere, and you just can't expect band and chorus to take hold at the high school if you're not investing at the middle school level.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I had heard that that's what Ms. Slade is going to be doing, teaching an extra class at the middle school, to plant those seeds so that when they go to high school. My big concern is we're going to plant these seeds, and we're not going to be ready when they're ready to harvest. And if we don't have a band director there today, by the time these kids get there, you're going to scramble to find one. And it just seems as if there's never a forward momentum with the high school music. It's always been stagnant, 2 steps back.
Yeah, I think, I know this
please.
isn't a discussion time, but, and I'm happy to respond to you. You know, you and I have talked about this. I have a student who was extremely disappointed that she wouldn't be having Mrs. Late for her senior year in band next year. But I understand the need to help to support the program. I think the past 2 years with COVID have just absolutely obliterated the performing arts. It's just been such a struggle. So my feeling is that by beefing up the program at the middle school and exposing more students to music and chorus and band, that in a few, we won't see the influx next year necessarily, but in a couple of years we can. And then I think, this isn't a permanent solution by any means. I think, we staff where we need the staff, and hopefully that will result in a solid programming once again at CHS.
Yeah, and the intent wasn't to say we want, I want Miss Late back in high school.
Right. No, I hear you.
What?
I do support bringing drama and the other performing arts back in-house at the high school. And I'm, as a parent, I'm very interested in figuring out ways to do that.
It's going to be tough if you only have Brittany in it.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Bowden will do both, and then saying, oh, one or two run.
Right.
That's a big nut to crack.
Mm-hmm.
When Carolyn came up to high school, it was 3 days a week. She was a fantastic replacement for Phil. It's just that she wasn't there 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And that department couldn't continue to grow. They didn't have time to invest because she's dealing with middle school, she's dealing with high school, and Jill left, and Ricky was moved, and then COVID just spread the world. But
Yeah. I feel like if we have a normal year next year, it'll be a different, outcome at the end of next year. But I appreciate your input, and
Well, thank you. I
I'm-
appreciate you guys being dialogue.
And Jim, please know, we are studying that. I mean, it's not, this is not a slight against the performing arts at all. But we can only staff where the students are. And what we've got to do is get the growth and interest there so that they're selecting those courses. Because there is an equity issue that we have across the board. We've got elementary teachers with classrooms that are packed. And then, there are 4 or 5 kids taking a course at the high school. And it's really hard to justify an equal resource when you're facing those types of numbers. So I think the department's decision to say, let's really increase the interest here so that it will continue is really the right way to do it, because we can't keep putting the same resource in for a handful of students at the same time that every single class at the elementary level is bellied right up to the caps. So it's really tight there. And it does create and even at the high school, there are other courses there that are full, 24 students. And, those teachers are looking at a colleague saying, you've got, a much smaller class size. So it does create a tension point for us to try to work our way through. I think the way to do it is to grow it and make sure that we have the right number of students in there so that the electives are popular. And I can tell you what's really fascinating with this, it's not the case with the visual arts. The visual arts classes are packed to the gills with more students trying to get into them. So,
Yeah, I think visual arts wasn't as disturbed as it got
Right.
with COVID.
Yeah.
And I still say Phil was the driving force behind that department. And when you put up, say, a part-time person in, because Carolyn was part-time here and part-time in elements, it took away from that world. So that was a Band-Aid. We thought we'd bring it up if that was a failed experiment. And hopefully this is not one. But
Yeah.
we'll keep watching. But thank you.
we will definitely.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we have any correspondence?
So we have nobody else in the meet. I'm just going to
Okay.
shut that. Is that okay?
Okay. Yep.
Right.
Correspondence isn't on the agenda.
We didn't put it on because this was supposed to be an abbreviated agenda.
Okay. And I just made it just as long as a regular meeting. Sorry about that. All right, then thanks, Jim. We'll move on to general business, the business administrator's end of year update.
So let me get Corey up there. There you go.
So along with my written report, I provided some revised financials today as of the last manifest going through this morning, checks being written. So right now we're looking at total fund balance of $580,000, which is about 2.5% of the gross appropriation, which is right in line with where we would expect to be. And I've broken that out to show the $100,000 that's going to our expendable trust fund, the $258,083, which is the proposed encumbrances, of which about $31,000 has not been approved yet. I provided that list as well. And this shows a return of about $223,000. I still anticipate through year-end process when I'm back in the office next week and with the audit coming up that these things are some final accrual entries that will have to take place before we get to the final numbers. But I'm pretty confident that these financials show that we're in pretty good shape and able to go through with the FY21 year-end funding list as proposed. As I noted, I provided the revised list of things that were identified over the past couple weeks. If I can just get to it on my computer so I can see it. A lot of it has to do with the additional kindergarten classroom that's going to be needed, classroom supplies, furniture, equipment, and also recarpeting the preschool portable down at GMS, which will now be utilized as a kindergarten, I believe, or at least one of the rooms will be utilized as a kindergarten. It's the original carpeting in those rooms, and after 20 plus years of preschool classes, it's time for them to be cleaned up and have that done. So that's included on the year-end funding list. So the remaining amount that we'd be looking for approval for tonight to bring the total up to $258,083 is $31,853 to meet these encumbrances. I also did per Tina's request, I did break out the year-end expenditures, department-wise, how we would budget across the district. Was that, I had sent that earlier. Does anyone have an opportunity to see it?
No, I'm just seeing it for the first time now.
You mean by department? Is that what you're talking about?
I did send one by department. I believe I emailed the general school board email address, as well as Michelle and Mike. I can re-forward it if needed. But it shows how it's broken down, how we go through the budget process departmental wise.
So everything in yellow.
Document?
Oh,
Go ahead.
It's in mail.
Okay. There's 3 though that's sent.
So what have we approved on here so far? Do we approve that?
Which sheet? Is this the one with the
This is
yellow
the
and
one
the
that
teal
came at
highlights?
It came at 3:30 today. Check your email.
It's the last one I gave you,
You gave me this.
but I think I gave you
The
this.
year-end
with
funding
the-
list?
The new phone's next.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
What did he say? I got it.
It's the yellow and teal.
Oh, that's the one.
The encumbrances?
We had previously
the name of the
approved
document?
26,230 as the total, and we're adding another 31,000 to it.
And you're talking about the other email that we got this afternoon.
Mhm.
That's what you're talking about, Tina.
I have
Okay.
not had a chance to review the additional documents that were sent out later.
Via email. Okay.
Yeah. This one, the list of encumbrances I've had because we had it last week for the budget
Yes.
committee meeting.
I saw that.
Okay.
Oh, no, I never saw the encumbrances until today.
No, the one she's talking about, the chair for the budget committee you saw at the last board meeting.
I thought they were with my original report. I sent them out yesterday afternoon.
I'm so
I saw them yesterday afternoon. You're talking about the year end.
Not
Year-end
the
funding.
encumbrances, the one we got at 3:30 today. I saw this last time.
The departmental
see-
breakdown of what the
didn't see
underspend
the
is from.
email.
That's
Yeah,
new.
That's new.
All right, that's, all right.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going crazy. That's
Okay.
what just came in.
That one, right?
It's new.
That
That
one's
just
new.
came in at 321 today.
Yeah.
Right.
The list of items, the 31,853 was available to the budget committee apparently last week. I recall seeing it yesterday.
Yeah.
It's nice. It went to the budget committee a week before it came to us.
It shouldn't have gone to the budget committee though.
I requested it from the budget committee. Corey sent it to me.
I think the
Never saw
budget
it.
committee has probably seen the 226 listing. I don't think they saw the 31,000 added.
She kept saying 1.1 or 1.2. I think they saw everything. Because that's
No,
why,
she was talking about the 810 that we've already encumbered for the LMS project, plus that's how she got the 1.1. So plus
Plus
the
the-
400,000
Yes.
in these encumbrances. So I don't think they saw the additional 31,000 that are up for approval tonight.
But this list, the board has had ongoing throughout the spring. This has been shared previously. I'm sorry, this being the one with the teal highlights and the yellow highlights
Yeah.
on it.
what if we don't approve
We've just been
this?
updating the same
We don't buy it. We don't
sheet
buy
as we go.
Well, will they get the money from someplace else?
You're talking about this
No.
one.
No, Jeff encumbered.
That one.
Yeah.
No.
But the GMS additional kindergarten classroom
That's on this
supplies and
Those are
equipment
already
and text,
Aren't those already approved?
those are on the list for board consideration today.
Corey, do you,
Yes, That would be for vote today.
Corey, do you have the ability to project where you are? I think to make this simple, if
Yeah. What-
you're able to project exactly what votes we're looking for, then we can make sure that we're sort of taking it piece by piece and
And
we're
I-
voting
Because
on.
I don't remember voting. Maybe I was crying. I don't know, but I could have been during my breakdown. But I would have questioned the concrete pads. I definitely would have
No,
questioned.
those all
the-
definitely came to the
Those
board.
came to the board and we approved those.
They did.
We were in this room for that when we
Sure, I
approved
found
those.
the right window here.
It was not when we were at the auditorium. We were in here.
I just have.
That's the kitchen concrete pad? No, that's.
No,
the
that's
The
for the
concrete pad for the
bleachers.
outside
Bleacher
bleachers.
pads, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on there.
Yeah. I thought we had more money than we did. I thought that I'm bad. It's
What
my
do you
fault.
mean?
I thought this was coming out of the $800,000. Honest to God, my fault, sorry, public. I didn't know this was an addition to the $800,000 or I would have voted differently. It's my fault. It absolutely is my fault that
When you say 800,000, you mean
the LMS thing.
Okay.
I thought it was all one big fund that we needed to approve. Does that make sense?
It is, but it was done in parts. Like, so
Yeah.
the first part was for the LMS, if I'm not mistaken, the roof, the windows,
Correct.
Right,
and
So we could get those
We
ordered.
could get those ordered.
right. I remember that.
that was the 810, because I remember asking Corey in this room, like, what's the total amount? I
Yeah.
added up.
That was in April.
45.
Yeah.
I
April
remember
7th.
that because there's no doubt LMS needs.
Then what was the
Yeah.
next amount that we approved? Is
Well,
it
so Corey,
258?
Corey, scroll down in the doc.
Yeah.
He's projecting it up here on the screen if it helps everybody. But if you scroll down to the last section, approved by the school board for spend ahead on April 7th.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so right there, you can see that everything below that was approved for the spend ahead on April 7th by a 500 vote.
Correct.
So that's done.
Yep.
Okay. Then that's the 845,000. You then go up to the next box above it, and it says additional items submitted for board consideration tonight,
31.
which is the 31,853.
Mhm.
And then, Corey, what about the items above that? Have they been approved or?
They were all voted
June 2nd.
previously. Well,
They were on the June 2nd meeting.
So the 98,850 and the 127,380 have all also been approved.
that's all been approved. Yes.
Okay. So the total of 1.1 million, everything's been approved except for the 31,853. That's what we're asking the board for tonight. And then that breakdown are for high school athletics, it's volleyball uniforms, spirit uniforms, and sports equipment.
Well,
And at Griffin, it's the kindergarten classroom supplies, textbooks, furniture, equipment, and recarpeting of the preschool kindergarten portable when the fifth kindergarten goes in there.
So we're not using the money we put aside for this earlier in case we needed a fifth
All
classroom?
that money has already been encumbered for the LMS project and the
So
phone
we're
system.
borrowing different money, even that we gave that money to the LMS project. Now
So,
we're taking.
no, hang on. So the trust fund
Yes.
has the money for the teacher in it. That's teacher
Okay.
only.
Yeah.
That was just a personnel trust fund. So these are the supplies for
Okay, that
that.
makes sense.
and we don't have to use the teacher trust fund because we're just moving a teacher from a different class.
Correct.
And it'll reserve that funding, although all the class sizes are bellying up in there.
Mhm.
So it's,
Yep.
I thought Josh was doing a rotating
Yeah, I
schedule
wanted
with
to ask about the
uniforms.
uniforms.
Like, if we're in a rotated, like this year, maybe they got lacrosse and soccer, and next year they're gonna get volleyball.
Right.
Isn't that already in his budget for this year?
Corey, can you speak to that?
But just to spend
I'd
ahead.
have to go into his budget. I could also reach out to Josh and see if these are items that he had planned in the budget for next year. I can look at that as well.
My understanding, if I can just jump in for a second, is that, remember, Josh has inherited a replacement cycle
Yes.
that may not have been followed carefully.
Mhm.
And so I think he's identified uniforms that should need to be replaced. These aren't, hey, it'd be nice to get new uniforms. These are, we need to replace these. He already had budgeted ahead to what was next following a cycle, but he needs to add these to it in order to complete and stay
Yeah,
where he
he's
needs
got
to
to
go.
catch up to the cycle.
Oh, that makes sense.
And the miscellaneous sports equipment.
Do you know what the miscellaneous sports equipment line is?
Mouth guards.
It was, I can look it up.
It's on the stupid
It
budget
was
of the year.
sports balls and soccer balls and volleyball, like just general supplies in terms of, sporting goods.
But that's already in this budget.
Right.
So can I just ask a clarification question? Because make sure I get the numbers right. Then you get the total. It says total approved 6/2/2021, 5-0 vote,
That's not right.
258.
It includes
It
the
includes the
31.
31. So that
Yeah.
number's not right.
Right.
Correct.
We didn't
I
approve
just checked
258.
that, yeah.
Wait a second. The
Right, the
total, where's-
258,083
Is
includes
including
the
the
31,853.
Which hasn't been approved.
That's what, yeah, that was confusing to me too.
Yes,
So what we've approved so far is the 8
the two upper numbers.
and
You catch
the
that, Corey?
845.
No, I'm having a hard time hearing.
No, so the 258,083 that says
Yep.
that was total approved, that includes the 31. So that cell,
That includes the 31, it does. What they've approved to date is 226 and change, I believe.
Plus
So
the
the 127, 380 and the 98, 850 for a total of 226, 230. That's been approved to date. We're just looking for approval on the
Plus
31.
Plus 845.
so that line, if you just, deduct out
Yeah.
the 31,853. Yep.
Any other discussion? I'll make a motion.
Well,
We can
I have some more
continue.
questions.
Elizabeth.
So let's say the concrete pad only costs 10,000. What happens to that $6,000? Does it go back to taxpayers or do we put it back someplace else?
It gets held by purchase order until year end, and then when we close out the purchase orders, it falls back into the return.
Oh, all right. Because you have to get, I was just curious how much something like that would cost.
I think we've reached out to a couple different vendors. The amount that's on there is based on the estimate we got last summer from JM on the level. We've reached out to a local resident to see if he'd be willing to do something for us. So we'll be looking to identify who's going to do that work.
What we're finding is everybody's very busy right now. So
Tell me about it. All right. So at the budget committee meeting, it was brought up that we are utilizing some funds from special ed.
Transportation.
So Corey, the question from Brian is that somewhere where we've indicated that there's an underspend in special ed transportation that we're
Yes.
using.
That's correct. It was transferred over as part of the 810 that went over to the capital project.
This is going to start a chain reaction with the school board. They're going to cut with the board, they're going to cut $75,000 from that this year after listening to that budget committee meeting. What did you think?
I think that when we have an underspend and we have a critical need like the LMS project, we have the authority and we have the responsibility to make transfers when we need to. I think the longstanding agreement that Carrie was referring to was made back in the day when we weren't budgeting special education based on current need and current and expected need for the following year, based on real students. I think in the past, the budget has been inflated so that there would be a cushion. And we've shown in the last few years that, we're not returning hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So
in
they're going to
special ed
cut
every year.
$75,000 off the top of special ed before they even see the 245. I'm just telling you because
No, I think what they'll end up doing is just trimming it right to the dollar and not give you any type of cushion whatsoever.
yeah.
Which is what how we currently budget anyway. We don't have any cushion in the
Then
special
where
ed
did the
budget.
$75,000 come from?
Right.
Because
How did the
because
transportation-
we budgeted for 75,000 more based on what we expected the need to be, but maybe it's transportation. Maybe that student was driven to school by parents instead of
It's even better than that. Schools went remote.
Right.
So
Yeah.
special ed placements, we didn't have to transport a student to.
Right.
So, next year that money will be necessary because they're going to be open
Right.
again and you're going to be transporting.
And it's going to be gone. Mark my words, it's going to be gone.
But it'll
because
be a real expense next year. This year it
that's
was
and
a
that's and
COVID.
that's. I mean,
I'm just saying because
Scenario.
that's the way they roll. We broke their agreement.
Right.
That's what they think.
no, that's what a member thinks.
No, at least 4 of them think that.
I disagree.
I 100% agree. I would bet my life and my
Okay,
children's
well,
life on it. That we told them we would give back special ed money and we are not.
Liz, I think
we
we
told
have,
them that 20 years ago
Right.
when none
With
of
a
us were
different
here.
board and a different budget
We did
committee,
not make that agreement.
different
with them.
superintendent, different BA.
All right.
Fund balance is fund balance.
but I think we have to anchor back around. The last 18 months have been unusual.
Oh,
in
I agree
so
I
many
would
with that.
ways.
love to see these
100%.
assumptions written down because half of them I have no idea what they are.
That's
They
exactly-
just pop up at certain times.
Right.
If you think that we are, we're held to certain things, tell us what they are.
Well, make it a policy.
I don't even know half
Right.
of them.
make it a
Make
policy.
it a policy. Exactly.
And I agree with you. I think these, handshake agreements that were done in 20 years ago or however
But I see
long
it done
ago.
now with people.
Well,
I-
and
it's
certain
still being
members
done.
have said things like, well, I don't know if I can promote your budget next year or support your
Mhm.
budget next year because of this one item. And I
Right.
don't think that's a responsible
budget committee member. I mean, you know,
I think it's more, the threat as far as 2 contracts and a new school.
That was,
yeah, I agree. And that's not the role of the budget committee. The role of the budget committee is to work with us to provide a budget that fits what we actually need. And, you know, holding items hostage and holding a recommendation hostage like that is just not right. And
it's not the same board, we know. It's changed considerably in the
Mhm.
past, since I've been on the board here.
But I think it's really important to realize that, okay, so there was a cost savings that came out of not transporting students because of a
Mhm.
pandemic. And we're utilizing the money to provide ventilation
right.
in a school because of the pandemic. So, you know, this also was an unseen expense for us in terms of the need to fix the ventilation at the middle school. And I won't say 35 years, but it's 25 years of delayed maintenance that has resulted in
Right.
the scenario that we're in. And all of this we're trying to do responsibly and to make sure that we're not hitting the taxpayers up for additional.
I
So
think if they knew how much money we were getting from the federal government, it would have been a little, do we have an exact dollar amount? And I think that would have softened the blow.
we have an exact dollar amount.
And that's gonna come off of the 1.2 million, or the 800,000,
No, the ESSER funds that have been given to the district,
what we already did.
the state DOE has tied our hands toward using that for construction projects. Now, there's, a couple of weeks ago, Gene Shaheen was in a meeting with the U.S. Commissioner of Ed and said, you need to call the commissioner in New Hampshire because they're holding the funds up. And when we passed this, we being the Senate, we expected this money to flow quickly to the schools. Why is that not happening? And he said to Gene Shaheen, I will be on the phone with your commissioner later this afternoon. And
I read the letter that he sent to the commissioner, and it was pretty straightforward.
And what was
that
John
these funds,
talking about?
but the problem is we're too late into it now
Right.
at this point. And so, yes, there are additional funds, but we're talking about an overall expense at the middle school of probably $3 million or more. And
Because
so,
John Davidson brought up federal funds.
but that's
Yeah.
only a third of the total expense.
Right, but we haven't received those yet.
Yeah.
Right.
We
Right,
received
they're still being held
we
up.
received the dollar amount we're gonna receive. And then I think we've got some limitations as far as how we can spend it, or we haven't received those yet, like how we
Right.
can
Correct.
spend.
Right.
But those monies are still in limbo right now.
Right. And we're in the application process for the ESSER 2 funds.
Yes,
ESSER
I
3
know.
funds hasn't even opened up yet. So we really don't know how much of this is going to be covered by the ESSER funds, but
This is such
I believe in the end
Yes.
that
Yeah.
all the ESSER funds will be able to go toward the
Yeah.
middle school project. I do believe that's what's going to happen. And I think the letter from the feds was saying, hey, that's why the money was
right.
Right,
was
that's what
released,
yeah,
okay.
that was what I thought, but we
you have
don't
to
know.
park it to next summer because, when we do the next phase of the project, that's when we'll utilize those funds. So there's still expenses to come. This addresses the envelope issues. So the windows, the roof, and the front ventilation project. So the one that we're running, and I can give the board quite an update on that.
It'll pay for itself with energy
It'll
totally pay
savings
for
and
itself in the
everything.
long
I
run.
agree.
And
And by not returning that money to the taxpayer now, I mean, if we were to say, okay, you can have all of that 800 or whatever is left, we just have to ask for it again next year in order to fund the project.
Oh, I don't have a problem with the LMS thing at all. I think
Yeah.
it's like taking care of your house. If you
Right.
let your garage door rot, it's gonna fall off.
and then you take the portables, right? So I mean, Litchfield taxpayers should know. Go by the middle school and take a look. The portables are emptied out. The decking has been removed. The company is coming maybe later this week, sometime next in the next month to come, and they're going to haul those portables away. That's going to result in savings of about $45,000 a year. But our intent is to use that money toward the investment back into the middle school. So all the delayed maintenance that has occurred to make sure there's proper ventilation, proper heating, more cost savings for everybody. I mean, we have a really good project that we have built down there and designed down there, and we're trying to do it without having a tax impact, but it's utilizing the taxes that have already been raised, and it's utilizing future savings toward the work to be done. And in the end, we can take care of the middle school for another 40 years
Without bonding.
without asking for
Right.
additional funding. That's the goal of this. And I do hope the budget committee recognizes that we're being very creative. So putting together federal funds that have come and other spending revenue that we're able to get all of this done.
Is that fair?
Oh, it's fair. I get it.
So at this point, what dollar amount, Corey, is going back to the taxpayers?
280.
If they approve the 31,853 that we're asking for, how much will be returned to the taxpayers, Corey?
Right now, it sits at $223,000.
223.
Which is what we budget for.
Which
usually.
is the budget amount.
So just out of curiosity, why aren't we taking $75,000 out of the 223? It's semantics, but it means you can tell the budget committee, we didn't take it from special ed, we took it from an underspend.
Well, I think the board should decide whether or not we want to hold to handshake agreements or if we want to.
No, what I'm saying,
To Brian's point, instead of showing that it transferred out of special ed, you
Yeah.
put the 75 back, you return 223, of which 75,000 is special ed transportation.
So we're,
It's just
semantics, it's a shell game, but it's, you're not taking it from special ed.
because you're returning the 223.
I don't know. I think in they want us to be transparent and see where the money is coming from. That was an area that was underspent. That money, that contributed to the underspend.
But aren't we literally saying 6 of one, half dozen?
Exactly,
I mean,
but-
it
Yeah.
doesn't
But-
matter.
That's the point.
It doesn't
The
matter.
same amount goes to the
Right.
these projects. The same amount goes to the budget committee, or I'm sorry, back to the taxpayers. It's just literally where are we calling it coming from?
But that's what they're hung up on right now, so that's what I'm
Right.
saying, just.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the budget committee meeting, so from last week.
I did
Now I
not-
know that's on my to-do
That's
list.
the whole budget process. As they cut, they're cutting
Right.
off of what
Yeah.
they think is
And
a
then I
line, but it's
said
a
that. I
bottom
said
line
it's a
budget.
bottom
Yeah.
line budget. That's one
But it's also
line.
a bottom,
of-
right, it's also a bottom line return.
Right.
Yes.
But what I'm
Yes.
saying, just a piece, Carrie, and put it back in
don't
special ed
think we need to
transportation
appease
and give it
anyone.
back to the taxpayers.
So to play devil's advocate, if I may, I suspect that there are some budget committee members who think we budgeted 200, so we owe the 200. We also have a handshake agreement of these other amounts.
Mhm.
You add those to the 200, so you're really returning 275,
Mhm.
and saying that the 200 includes this would not satisfy them
Right.
anyway. And I
That's
just think we
exactly
have
what
to
will
say that out loud, and then you can decide how you want to proceed on it. But I'm trying to make sure that we
I just think taxpayers I, as a taxpayer, was hoping I would get money back this year. My taxes will go down instead of going up. And I think people thought they were getting more money back this year. I really did.
But
But
the only
they
reason-
need to know where the money is going, and I think it will
Which
be
we've
fine.
been clear about.
Yeah.
But the reason that we have the monies right now, and we talked about this the last time, a lot of it is coming from salaries that we didn't pay because we couldn't fill the positions.
Right.
Maintenance positions that we were underspent, I don't know how dollars, I mean,
Exactly.
Corey can get those numbers, but that's where it's from. It's not like we budgeted $1.5 million over what we needed and then we
Right,
spent it at the
We
end of the
didn't
year. 'cause
close
That's,
buildings like we did last
Right.
year. I don't know
And the
why there
special
would
ed
be that
transfer-
expectation that we would be giving a lot more back this year.
I'll tell you what, we're giving back more than the town.
The special ed.
Okay, the town takes it and they put it into an account. Oh, be clear, okay? They
You're
don't,
right.
right? They got a couple of $1 million sitting there.
They do.
The budget committee never questions them about that. I'll say it publicly, they don't question them. They just, the town, whatever they have left over, they put it in their little kitty. Or at the end of the year, they do what we do. They spend like they did. They bought the 2 vehicles for the police department and a few other items they purchased. All right. But the budget committee doesn't question them about that. They come and attack us constantly when we spend money to like do our buildings. But we're right up front. And then town was up front also in how they spent their money. They were transparent about it. It was out there. But same thing with the town. They budget X amount that they need. And when they have a surplus, oh, they don't give it back to us, do they? No. But the school does. But this year, we didn't give a lot of it back because again, it came through mainly through salaries that were underspent.
Mhm.
And a few other items that, there was a cost reduction because of not as many kids in school and that type of thing. And
Oh, it's an
transport.
opportunity to keep our buildings up and do much needed
Absolutely.
maintenance.
And that's,
And I think people will be
And
okay
a
with
lot
that
of this spend ahead is because they cut the budget for next year so deeply that we may have trouble meeting those requirements next year. The special ed transportation line was one of a whole list of departments that those funds came from.
So can I ask, I don't know that I feel I have enough information about the CHS athletic
I don't either.
line items to be able to vote on that tonight,
I was
honestly.
gonna make a motion to
agree.
remove all 3 or 4 of them
Yeah.
because I don't, you know, again, we don't know what the calendar is, this rotation for uniforms. I'm sure it probably needs uniforms, but it should have been in the budget. And the miscellaneous sports equipment, I'm sorry, I'm so sick and tired of seeing that line on athletics, and I've been saying this for like 6 years, that there should be more specifics as far as miscellaneous. And when you see it on the budget line, it normally says miscellaneous, then it'll say mouth guards, socks,
Etc.
that's
I
what
know.
it says.
So I was going to make a motion to approve the additional kindergarten classroom supplies, text, furniture, equipment, and the recarpeting the preschool. Portable.
I second.
Did you make a motion, Brian? So basically just approving the other things, not the athletic stuff.
Right, so I'm sorry, so it's the other portable we're changing the carpeting?
Yeah, so
The
that
preschool
that
part.
The old
preschool
one.
portable is becoming and having two, my understanding is 2 kindergarten classes are going in there and one of the preschool is moving out into
Yes.
the kindergarten. So they have buddy classrooms with a more senior teacher and a less senior
So it's
teacher.
that original portable.
Because someone
Just
mentioned, someone,
But I could be wrong.
No, that, I think that's a.
because someone
Okay.
mentioned that the
It
carpet,
needs new rugs.
My understanding is that. And so therefore, yes, it needs new rugs.
right, it's not 20 years old,
No, it's 12.
The preschool portable?
because that used to be the kindergarten,
Correct.
Yeah.
which my daughter was in, who's now gonna be a senior.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Are they that bad?
It's
12 years worth
12
of preschoolers.
Preschoolers.
Yes, I would say yes.
Are we sure we want carpet in there?
Well,
Oh.
previously kindergartners, but yes, 12 years of preschool and
Yeah.
There isn't
kindergarten
enough
students.
steam cleaners in the world to make that.
Yeah, I support that.
12
They're
years worth of
approving
milk
20.
spills.
23,620.
Did you want to make the motion, Brian?
Well, I just got one more question, and as far as the carpeting,
He made, okay,
would it be wise to replace it with something aside from carpeting?
that's what Can
Like
we put,
laminate, which would
a
cost about the
tile
same?
or- Yeah. Even,
It'll be nice and cool.
So
with the AC.
we'll double check it with Dave. So the carpeting is helpful when the students are on the floor. Then,
Sure.
you end up
I'm not
putting
saying you can't
laminate
get like
down
a
and
throw
behind
carpet,
the
like they
area
have
rug.
those circles. you know.
But he's also gone to the carpet squares so that if one
They're
gets
easy to
damaged, you can
remove.
replace just one. So we're no longer doing wall to wall. It's the
Okay.
individual squares. But we'll definitely be economical in the way we do it.
I thought, like, if you have laminate, I don't want a rug on my floor because you just can't keep it clean enough. You don't know if there are little bugs living in it or anything.
Hope there's no bugs.
It wasn't one of my
There should be.
schools.
Can you ask Corey if the total they're approving is
Yeah, you just took
23,620?
the other
Yeah, he
items
just
out.
took it out. Yep.
23,620.
so which motion did we, which motion was seconded?
Yours.
Yours.
Okay,
To approve just those 5 items and
Yeah.
we seconded it.
23,620.
all right. Any more discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
So your return is going to be obviously increased by what you just cut, right? So
Okay. Do we need any other action from the board?
Corey, do you need any other action?
Nope. That's it.
Do we want to revisit the discussion on the handshake agreement, the understanding, or?
I think that's a discussion we can have before,
Budget
budget
season?
prep and then
Okay.
bring it to them.
I would
I think it goes
ask,
back,
as the liaison, I mean, to ask the budget committee, would you please put in writing
Yeah.
all the
Mhm.
I would
the
love that.
agreements
That-
that you think are in
like a-
place?
Like
So
a
that-
memorandum of understanding even
Sure.
between the
Mhm.
school board and them.
but I think both of
All
the things they
verbal.
have, like as far as
All
putting on a
verbal.
teacher, if we know we need a teacher, I think we know better than them if we need to add a teacher.
Yep.
I think it's that, and it's the sped thing, but I think both of those stem from going back to when the high school was built.
Yep.
And just everything was out of control. And right now, they have the oversight as far as the budget committee, and we're pretty clear. People keep talking about transparency. We can't be any more transparent than we are. Well, I guess we can, according to Jim Norton.
Yeah, and I
But,
still
I mean,
maintain
we
we've
try as
changed
much as
how we
possible
budget.
to be upfront, when it comes to positions needed. And as far as returning monies, and it's not, Mike, I think the other one said it, it's not like back in the day where, we had like $1 million left over in sped or $500,000 in sped, we wouldn't spend it, we'd give it to them. But when you're only talking,
We need to keep reiterating that for people in town, the old timers.
We have
that
to have the
remember those
flexibility.
days. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a different age, it's a different board, different superintendent, different BA. I mean,
it's a
I think
different
we've-
town than it was.
Different learning environment too.
It is.
Things are constantly changing.
Right.
And to be making budget decisions, a year and a
Year and a
half,
half out.
2 years out,
Yeah, I
provides
maintain
us
that
very
we-
little flexibility that you
Right.
absolutely need
Right,
nowadays.
right. I mean, how many positions could we have changed or added if we had had the flexibility within the approved budget in March of 2020? Could we have, if we needed another tech staff person to help the teachers with remote learning? I mean, if we could have had that flexibility, I think it would have been a different transition.
Right.
This year would have been very different.
and I
as
think
well.
what would have happened is we probably have $500,000 less to put into LMS. We would have put it into educators probably, if we could have hired them
Mhm.
to help out this past year.
Right.
But instead, we couldn't even staff what we needed.
A lot of those gentleman agreements you're
Mhm.
talking about were made when Litchfield and Hudson were a district.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
these
okay.
are way back.
Way back. All right.
And how do they
That would be
remember
good to
them?
put those.
Because
in
they just keep
writing.
being brought up.
They just
by-
Yeah.
pass them
Yeah.
down from board to board.
Yeah.
All right. I
How?
will contact
Well,
the
because Cindy
chair.
Couture
and-
was on the school board for a period of time.
Yeah, I'm
Then
just,
she was on the budget committee, so it just kept extending, not just her.
Just like a list.
Yeah.
Bill Spencer.
Right.
Women writing.
Then everybody knows them.
And then once it's articulated in
Or
writing,
can
I think we bring
discuss
it back
them
to
at
say,
least.
do we still agree with that?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
because
Mhm.
nobody here shook anybody's hand over those.
Right.
Nobody, I don't think on the budget committee, they've just been hand-me-downs.
Yeah. I
So-
don't know how far they go back.
At some point, you have to kind of reestablish where you are.
Right. I may in this time. Okay. So I'll contact the budget committee chair and we'll work together on that.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the consideration. Okay. Thanks. Let me find the agenda again.
Manifest.
Manifest.
Manifest. I haven't finished signing it. So we'll get to that, I guess. I don't suppose there are any questions. Non-public session.
I have a question before. Am I allowed to go off the agenda?
Yeah.
What is the room capacity here? Someone,
17.
17.
It's on the agenda.
I know, I saw that. I didn't know, everything changes all the time.
Yeah.
And like, these are new, those are new. Like, if, say 25 people wanted to come, do they stand outside
They
and
have
wait
to
to come in
stand-
one at a time?
You have to stand
8 of
either
them do.
outside or in the lobby where.
8 of them would, yeah.
Yeah.
So they would be allowed to come in the building. It just,
Mhm.
someone asked me and I said 17. And that's all I know,
Yeah.
17.
Are
That,
there-
that includes us, that includes cable.
But does that include the lobby?
No,
That's
No,
a whole
this
different,
room is
there could be
fine.
100 people in the lobby, but only 17 in here.
Well, so there's 9 of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the last time we had 8 people even attending, even
Yeah.
pre-COVID in this room anyway. So, but 8, we could have 8 guests, I guess, but I mean, there's 4 guest chairs back there.
Just people in limbo. I was just curious. Someone asked me and I just 17.
You were right.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good guess.
Yeah, Liz.
All right.
Yeah.
So
sometimes my
with
brain's
that,
turned
I'll
on.
ask for a roll call vote to go into non-public to discuss the dismissal, the dismissal. Wait a minute. Non-public session, RSA 91-A:311, sections A through C. A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected, 1, has the right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee, or C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. Brian,
Yes.
Tara,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So that brings us into non-public. Thank you.